Hi. Hello. Hi. All right. Hello. This is Gail Carriger. I write books, and I am going to talk about other authors that I love. I figure most of you watching are readers rather than writers like myself, or maybe some of you are both. And that today we just have a discussion about some of my favorite authors that I read a lot. I have to say, I was looking through my collection of physical books, of which I have a lot of mine, but not a lot of other people's. And I realized this is gonna be also a conversation about authors who are really formative. A lot of the books that I have kept are specifically a kind of size, shape, and from specific time periods because I made the transition to mostly digital reading. But we'll get into all of that while I'm waiting for people to join the live. Let's see. It looks like we've got one person on Facebook and 5 people on YouTube. So, hello, my darlings. um, we'll give it a little time. Is a rainy, dark day here in Northern California. So I have a ring light for the very first time. Hey, Kat. Hello. Good afternoon. While we're waiting for people to join, I hope you have questions and I hope you're excited to talk about books with me today. Please leave a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from if you'd like to, or you can let me know if there are authors of whom you've read more than 5 books. That's the criteria. Some of these authors I've read way more than 5 books, and I'm sure you are the same. But yeah, just tell me some of your favorite authors, some of your favorite books. That's basically what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be a little book chat with Gail. Of course, if you have questions about anything else, I'll be very happy to answer those as well. But this is just an extra topic. Before we get started, while we're waiting for people to join, we're going to go through the usual, which is the tea I am drinking today. I'm going to take a sip. You can also tell me what you're drinking if you'd like to. The tea I'm drinking today is a chai, actually. I'm drinking it out of this Wedgwood cup. This is my favorite shape of teacup. I find it extremely satisfying. It's like, I don't know, I would just call it like a classic teacup shape with the little foot and then this like lovely, very round form. It doesn't curve in like a Satsuma shape, which is my favorite shape of Demitasse teacup, but for a standard teacup, this is my all-time favorite shape, and this is probably my favorite pattern. I can't remember what it's called, but it's Wedgwood's Deco pattern, and it has this beautiful gray and silver design with just the little pops of blue in it. I think it's just very elegant and stunning. It highlights the tea. The tea can shine with this teacup. Let me show this up for Facebook. My very favorite teacup. And the chai I'm drinking, look how prepared I am today. This is the chai I am drinking. Let's show the label, shall we? It is Blue Lotus's chai. This is specifically the Mandarin masala. If by Mandarin they mean it has the flavor of orange, that is a lie. It does not have the flavor of orange. If by Mandarin they mean it is Chinese influenced, then perhaps that is what is going on with this chai. It's my all-time favorite chai, aside from Chai Baba Chai, which is a wholesaler of chai that goes out to some of it's a local one from Santa Cruz that goes out to some of the cafes here in the Bay Area. But if I have to do a store-bought chai, this is the chai I love. I love it because it is a powder, and you need a very, very small amount. Do not be fooled by the small size. This thing lasts me like 3 or 4 years. But it is not sweetened, so it has no sugar in it. You can sweeten it yourself, but I actually like an unsweetened chai. I like my chai very spicy and very strong, but with no sweetener in it, because I put a little bit of milk in it, and for me, that's enough sweet. So that is the tea I am drinking and the teacup I am drinking it out. This is the lipstick I am wearing. I'm merely doing this because these are the questions I get all the time. It is CoverGirl's Yummy Blur. I love this formula. For those of you who haven't tried the sort of Korean pudding pot, like soft matte formulas that are like new to the market, this is basically an American super cheap dupe of those formulas if you'd like to try it out. I love this formula. So Yummy Blur is the name of it's by CoverGirl. You just get it anywhere. pretty much. And this is their red, which is basically a dupe for Ruby Woo, which is my favorite color of red of all time from MAC. So I just love it that it's like this new modern formula that I adore in a color that is very old school and very vintage that I adore. So this is one of my new favorite lipsticks. So that's what's going on in terms of drinking and wearing. And I we have a quorum on YouTube at least, which means I think a lot of people are moving from Facebook to YouTube, which is good because, as I've said before, I'm a little scared that Facebook is going to just shut us down at any point in time. I think they're going to remove the live feature eventually. So we're going to talk about books today. And why not get started with some young adult, which I have been a big reader my whole life. I started reading young and early, as I think a lot of writers did. But it was young adult literature, which was just starting to be called that. Young adult is a marketing term, and it was just starting to be called that when I was a young adult. And so it was synergistic. And a wonderful librarian recommended this book to me, and I went out and bought it, and I persuaded my parents to buy me the hardcover releases of these books when they came out, which was an exorbitant expense. I was expected to mostly read stuff from the library and to convince the librarian to buy these books for me. So the fact that I love these books and I love this author so much that I managed to persuade my parents to get me these books when they came out, and I still own them in the original hardback for the US release, is a miracle. And they are Tamora Pierce. Tamora Pierce is a Lana series in particular, but I love and have read, I believe, everything that Tamora Pierce has written, including some of her collections and short stories. So yes, I'm a big super fan of Tamora Pierce, and I've met her a couple of times, once as a fan, and then I think 2 times as Gail, as a professional fellow author, which was magical. But yes, I adore her books. Alana still really speaks to me. She was the first one I read. I loved this series. It's a 4-book series. I always say I wrote a 4-book YA series because I had read a 4-book YA series as it was very formative for me. But I also adore Kel. I really like Becca. I like a lot of her main characters. I think they're wonderful characters. And yeah, Tamora Pierce, huge fan. So definitely have read more than 5 of her books. And also very informative in that I was talking about how much I loved Tamora Pierce when I was a lowly freshman in English class in high school. And someone else piped up from the back row that she also loved Tamora Pierce. And that someone is my best friend now of decades. Far too many decades, more decades than I would care to admit. That friend was also my first beta reader. So, and we are both still in the book industry. So, hey, look how that works. From ages 13 on. So yes, very, very important. That would be my first one. Close on the heels and equally beloved, although also prolific, but is Robin McKinley. So Robin McKinley's Blue Sword was also one of my first books. I am one of those. This is a duology there, or sort of a duology. It's the Blue Sword and then the Hero and the Crown. And I actually prefer the Blue Sword. That's my favorite, but no shade. If Hero and the Crown is your favorite, I understand. We all have our favorites. McKinley also writes adult books, and so I've read pretty much everything that she's written as well, which again, way more than 5 books, but this was the first one, and I believe, again, the librarian probably passed it along to me. Bless librarians, for goodness sakes, they are miracle workers. After I'd read Tamora Pierce and I was looking for more girls with swords. And so this one came into my life. So another very formative writer. McKinley is a little bit more of a lyrical author. I would call Tamora Pierce respectfully an adept and very efficient author. One of the great things about her as a writer is how incredibly paced she is. Her pacing is excellent. It's incredibly fast. It's really easy to gobble up and read these books, but she's not particularly lyrical. She doesn't seem very focused on the language use, which is not to say she's a bad writer by any means. It's more that that's not what she super seems to care about, and it makes her very delightful to read for me personally. Whereas McKinley is a little bit more lyrical. She's clearly got, some more interest in English language as a language and how it performs on the page. So they're very different writers, but very much for me both extremely beloved. All right. I'll take a pause, see if anybody's got any comments for me. Dragonlance. Oh my goodness. I remember the Dragonlance books. I remember I would go to Green Apple Used Bookstore in San Francisco when my mom had a job in the city, what we call the city. And she would occasionally do that job on the weekend. And so she would take me and drop me off at Green Apple, and then she'd go do the job. And she's a gardener, my mother, and I would just be happily entertained at Green Apple, and I would walk all the way to the back, up the stairs to the science fiction fantasy section, and then I would spend far too much time looking for the Dragonlance books that I had not read before. I believe, I want to say like Diane Duane or somebody like that I discovered because of Dragonlance, because they would have like authors who were, known authors in their own right also be writing for like Dragonlance. So yes, and I agree. One of the YouTube comments says that Dragonlance was like YA before YA, and you're right. So like when I was reading these YA, that's exactly when I was like going for Dragonlance secondhand, because it had been sort of like the first wave. Karen says, those are two of my favorite authors too. Yay. I have a feeling if you love my books that you're probably going to know about or definitely love a lot of the books that I'm going to talk about today. So yeah, I think you should comment with some of your favorites from childhood and see if we're going to match up at all. Cause I bet we'll have some crossover for everybody. Which brings me to my next one. Yeah, we'll do this one next, because she also falls for me predominantly into the YA category, and that is Patricia Wrede. So Patricia Wrede's Dealing with Dragons. Huge fan. Obviously, Cimarron, one of the greatest princesses ever put on the page, right up there with MMK. The Ordinary Princess, who is not in this because MMK's Ordinary Princess is middle grade, and also I only really have read that one book by her, so it does not qualify for the 5-book rule. But Patricia Wrede definitely qualifies, especially as she co-authored with Carolyn Savamora the Sorcery and Cecilia series, which is incredibly formative and definitely has something to do with the tone of the Parasolverse, if nothing else. But these were the first Wrede books that I read. This was the first one that I read. This was not the edition. This is just the edition that I happen to have collected. I like mass market paperback. And we can talk about books and editions and shapes if you like in a bit, but mass market paperback is my favorite format. So that's what I tend to collect and have in my collection if I have the physical copy at all. So Dealing with Dragons, wonderful book. Again, like super fast paced, very fun to read. What Wrede has is an incredibly strong sense of humor. I feel like some of McKinley's books can be pretty humorous as well, but Wrede, almost all of her stuff has a real strong comedic backbone, which I love and appreciate for obvious reasons. So that's why she's definitely in the list. And then we, I guess, can start some of the crossovers with this one, Anne McCaffrey. I would put the Dragon Singer series in a YA category. And there were some of her earlier books, and they read now, especially, they read very tonally YA. I think the Dragon Rider, some of the early Dragon Rider series as well, again, they read quite YA. I'm less interested in McCaffrey when she starts co-authoring with others. I don't enjoy the books as much. So it's most of her earlier works that I like the best. But it was McCaffrey, in conjunction with the next author I'm going to talk about, who got me to start reading sci-fi. I was, as a kid, very strongly a fantasy reader and not a sci-fi reader. Some magical realism in there, of course, with things like Tom's Midnight Garden and The Water Babies, books like that out of the UK. But American authors. McCaffrey's American, yeah. I think she moved outside of the country, but I think she is American originally. Anyway, it was always fantasy first, and then these books, the Pern books, are techno fantasy, or at least they become techno fantasy, rather like the Darkover novels. And that kind of like pushed me into reading science fiction. And then I kind of never looked back as well. And then I read both pretty voraciously, but it did take me a little while. This is definitely my favorite. And I think McCaffrey is stronger at the beginning books in her series is. I find this book is the strongest of this trilogy, if you want to think of it as a trilogy. And this is the book I gravitate to reread relatively regularly and still love. I think it has some like really strong classic themes in it of a main character that doesn't fit into her world, that has a special talent, that is recognized for that special talent, and that escapes her mundane life for a more special supernatural-esque life because of that ability. And we see that particular theme in YA constantly, which is why I think of these books as YA books, although I don't think they were ever explicitly marketed that way. So yeah, and McCaffrey, another author I've read a lot of, and I bet you guys have read a lot of McCaffrey too. And then finally, like sort of capping us off on the more like classic authors that I think a lot of you would know about and are not surprised were very formative. We've got Mercedes Lackey. I've told the story of meeting her before, so I'm not going to retell it now unless you really, really want me to. But this is my favorite Lackey book, By the Sword. As this is a bit of a theme going on. Girls with swords, you guys, I love them. I love them so much. I love a standalone. I'm a true fan of standalone books, and I think this is an incredibly strong and riveting standalone. It's a fat book, but I still love it. I did not start with this with Lackey. I started with the Arrows trilogy, which now is a bit dark for me, but is what I would call more YA. Again, Lackey, like McCaffrey, was writing during a time where even though a lot of the premises and style and length even was YA-ish, her books were never classified or sold or marketed as YA. I think the Arrows trilogy is YA. I love those books very much, but when it came time to move for the 100th time and I had to choose which books to keep of Lackey's, this was the one I chose to keep. It's my absolute favorite. I love Carowin. I identify with her very, very strongly. My general, my heart. So yes, and these like classic, super bright, cheerful 80s covers that they got. Oh my goodness. There's such a vibe of the times. But I have great nostalgia for this book. You can see it is incredibly, I think I got it new, but it's incredibly well loved. There is a child Gail who had a filing system for everything. Adult Gail still has a filing system. We love to categorize things in this household. What can I say? Including our books when we are 14 years old. Anyway, yes, this is much beloved dog-eared. I'm pretty mean to my books. I kind of like it. I like seeing the record of my past interest in a book. I like it when people come up to me with one of my books that's all crinkly and it's been dropped in the bathtub. And I'm like, I love seeing a well-loved book. I love being the person who loves a book. Or maybe we would say abuse the book. I'm a bit of a book abuser. But it's a record of how much I adore it. So yes, Mercedes Lackey, another one. I've read, I suspect, all of her Valdemar books. Although again, she's another one that when she started co-authoring, I understand why, but I am just less interested. I think it does change the tenor of her books. So I'm not as big of a fan. Weirdly, I'm not as big of a fan of her like Elemental Magic series, which are the ones that are set in like the Victorian era. I should be, but for some reason I never vibed with them as much as I vibed with the Valdemar books. So there it is. Some of my core foundational books. And then because I do not keep physical books very often, I only have one more author to talk about that I have a physical book for. And then, of course, we can have a whole conversation about some of the other authors that I've read many, many books of, but mostly in digital form. And the final author is S.L. Viehl. This is the author that I think perhaps many of you will not know. So S.L. Viehl is a sci-fi author. She's wonderful. She's a sci-fi author who has a strong backbone of a romantic thread It's not necessarily romance. It doesn't necessarily satisfy at the end of each book, although often it does. And that's one of the reasons I really love her books. It was really rare when she was primarily a big deal to have any kind of romance in your sci-fi. And so I really love her books because of that, but they're also excellent adventures and they're excellent science fiction books. So this is Biorescue. She has two standalones, Biorescue and Blade Dancer, that are sort of, everything is set in the same sci-fi universe. And these two are ones that I truly, truly love. I picked Biorescue because I just think it has the cooler cover. And yeah, they're just fun. They're just fast-paced and fun, strong female main characters, lots of adventure, and then a little bit of sexy times that are always well done and well written. So I really recommend SLV if you have a chance. So she has these standalones, which I love, but I've also, and the reason she qualifies for the over 5 books rule is she also wrote a series about a medical doctor in space. So like if you took Dr. Crusher from Star Trek The Next Generation and made her the main character, basically that's what those books are. And they're called the Biorescue books. It's kind of like an ambulance in space concept. And so I read, and that is a long running series, and I read all of those books. So that's why she qualifies. But I think her standalones are my favorites. Although I enjoyed that series. These are the ones that are my favorites. So those are some of the authors that I've read a lot of that I love. And of course I would recommend. I feel like some of them, especially some of their earlier ones, they're definitely of their time, right? They have tropes without trigger warnings that perhaps a modern audience might balk at a little bit. Dubious consent is really common as a plot device, and we don't love that anymore in the modern age, but I tend to forgive things of their times, and I admit there's quite a bit of nostalgia in my looking back at these books. But Lackey in particular has like some great representation of queer characters and some things that like at the time was incredibly formative and we didn't even know. I mean, Tamora Pierce is remarkable for having put a character having to deal with getting her period for the first time on the page in a fantasy book. And I know that doesn't seem like revelatory now, but I can assure you that it was back then. And also birth control is addressed in these books. Also falling in love with and having a relationship with a friend doesn't work out and they go back to being friends, right? Like that kind of thing. Like she's very modern in certain ways. And I think that's part of what attracted me to a lot of these authors is that it was seeing myself on the page, but it was also seeing things addressed in fantasy that we didn't normally get, especially as female readers. Excuse me, it's gotten quite warm. I'm taking my sweater off. So yeah, but I will say if you are new to any of those authors, that they are creatures of their time. Those books are creatures of their time, and that time was 30 years ago, so or more. So just be aware that they're vintage. They're vintage now. So another author who I can think of off the top of my head, who I've read many books of and who I really appreciate and adore, who kind of falls into the similar category, is Tanya Huff. Tanya Huff is an author. So I don't have any of hers in my collection anymore. I did for a long time. She's a very interesting author from an author's perspective. And that is because she changes her voice almost completely between her different series, which is a really hard skill to master. So if you read like Tanya Huff's Valor series, which is her military sci-fi, which is very good. She was in the military. She was in the Canadian military. So she knows what she's doing when she's writing military sci-fi. And that is my favorite of her stuff, which is the Valor series. I can't recommend it highly enough if you like sci-fi. It's like it's a different author, like completely different author than if you read like her Winds Four Quarters, her fantasy world stuff, or her Gates series, which is her urban fantasy series. They all could have been or silvered. Like they all could have been written by a completely different person. It's amazing, actually. She is also an excellent short story writer. I got to listen to her read a short story at one point, which was way back in the day. And I remember she's quite shy actually, but when she was in front of a room doing that reading, like it was packed and people were riveted, and it was an absolutely charming short story. I still think about it. Occasionally I will try to find out if it's in print anywhere. It was just a short story about a fantasy world cook, and dealing with all of these warlords who keep invading her castle and taking it over. And she keeps surviving each new transition because she's such a good cook. It's such a good short story. So Tanya Huff, big fan, love her stuff. But in my case, I specifically like her sci-fi. And I suppose we could talk a little bit about why I choose to keep or not these books. I very rarely reread in hardcover anymore. So if I want to read a book now, I tend to read it digitally, for many reasons. I'm not against any formats, I promise. But I am a digital reader because I am a speed reader. So I like to read faster than listen. So audiobooks have never worked for me really well because, I mean, I can have it at 2 times speed, but it starts to sound a little weird. So I prefer to read in print, and I like to read digitally because that print can be enlarged, and my eyes are just getting increasingly bad as I get older. And also it allows me to have thousands of books with me on a device at all times. So that's why I've sort of because I was traveling so much for so long, it just makes more sense for me to have the books in digital format. So that's why I'm mostly a digital reader. So what I have done with authors like Huff is when I'm like getting into a reread phase, I'll go and rebuy those books. And then when I do the next reread, I'll reread them in digital, and then I'll donate the print edition if I don't have like super emotional attachment to that print edition. So that's why I personally keep so few printed books in my house. I also live in a very, very small apartment. It's only 400 square feet or so. I don't have a lot of room for books. So, and I've moved a couple of times my office, and now it's in my apartment with me. So I just don't keep a lot of books. So books get purged every time I move. Yeah, so Huff is another one who I've read a lot of, but in her case, I'm mostly a fan of her when she's writing science fiction, which she doesn't do as much. I mean, she pretty much splits herself evenly across the different genres. So I sort of have to wait. It has been a while since she's done sci-fi. I think, or I suspect, it's just not as lucrative as some of her other works. I think there are definitely authors for whom I like them when their voice is confined by a genre. So, for example, I've read quite a bit of Kate Elliott, but I prefer Kate when she is writing young adult, like the Court of Fives series, because I feel like her voice is suited to the tightness that is required by YA, and that I think she gets edited really heavily when she's writing YA. And I like reading her when she's constrained a bit. And I think when Tanya Huff, for example, is writing military sci-fi, she's trying to keep it very action-packed and punchy as an author. And I find that I think that jives with her style of delivery and her style of dialogue really, really well. So I just enjoy her in that format. To each their own, right? I have my own taste, just as you do as readers. We have a question here on the YouTube, so I'm going to pause. Oh, TM Kuda asks very kindly, do I have a blog post with all of these? Yes, I do. In fact, if you're on Facebook, I put the link to that blog post in, and on YouTube, I don't know if you can see the original comments below the screen, but there should be a link to that blog post in both locations. So Facebook and YouTube, you should both be able to see the link that goes to the blog post that has all of these authors mentioned. I don't go into this kind of detail about why I like or dislike them. I just have lists of my favorites, but you can see them there. So thanks for asking. And yes, there is in fact a blog post. I suspect you can also Google Gail Carriger 5 favorite authors, or authors I've read 5 books, something like that, and the blog post will come up as well. I'm going to Scott says, cheers to the 8 people watching on Facebook. My Vertigo doesn't like digital, says Sue. I totally understand. Like, it really is, a tragedy of choice these days. Oh, Sue says that they love SLVL. Lyn, yes, that's great. I'm so happy to find somebody who also knows about SLVL. She's pretty rare for people to know about her these days. Yeah. Oh, Andrew Norton. Yes, there's some names I recognize going on the Facebook thread. Let's see down here. Ah, somebody just said they finished all of the Purd books. Man, that's a lot of books now. That's a lot of books. Yes, the link is in the video description. Yeah. All right. Other books. Let me take a look. Who else? All right. Okay. Let's talk about some like favorites who other way back favorites. So we talked about some already. A few others that I've read at least 5 books are include Garth Nix. Sabriel was my first Garth book, but I love Garth Nix's. Garth Nix has a amazing, I would call it high fantasy, but it is I think he was actually marketed as YA, but it's very high fantasy. It's very rich world building, very luscious world building. But it's about it's a necromancer series. It's so good. I have had a necromancer series at the back of my brain that I have wanted to write for years, but I can't because Garth Nix did it already so good. It's so good. Yeah, Sabriel is it's such a good series. Anyway, I'll never get over it. The Bells. It's so good. If you know Garth Nix. So yes, I've read all of that. I haven't read a lot like his I think it's called the Towers series. I haven't read his other series. There's something about like sort of the pure delight that is those necromancer books that I can't escape them. They're the ones for me with Garth Nix. Another author, in this case it's authors, I've read a ton of are Lee and Miller, Sharon Lee and Steve Miller. Their Leiden universe, I'm a huge fan. Talk about a meaty, juicy science fiction universe if you would like to climb into. They do something which I really love, which is they do this amazing culture build of these different colony races basically, and then the conflict between them. It's so good. Yeah, the Leiden universe. Highly recommend. Lots of books in that series to get tucked into if you want to like climb into a true meaty series. Great. I would say kind of classic space opera. It doesn't take place on a ship in space, although sometimes it does. But it has a lot of the hallmarks of like classic space opera. And as somebody who like cut her teeth on Star Trek: The Next Generation and Babylon 5 and those kinds of sci-fi shows, the Leiden universe kind of really taps into that same DNA for me personally. We talked about quite a few of these. I have Jane Yolen down here as well as an early one, and then my first like entree into romance was in fact through somebody who's largely, I guess, considered a fantasy author, who was Sharon Green, who essentially wrote fantasy romances in like the 80s, even the 70s, 80s, early 90s. Yeah, Sharon Green. Do you remember her? That is a long pull because she really did write romances, just very high fantasy settings. And I think she was never really a big deal because of that. But my goodness, can you imagine the fantasy romance girlies, the romantasy discovering Sharon Green? Someone's going to discover Sharon Green in a used bookstore and lose their mind because yeah, that's what she wrote. She wrote romantasy, but 40 years ago. I love Sharon Green. So those are like some of my way back picks. So you're gonna have to be like my generation or so, I suspect, to have a real familiarity with some of those authors. So I talked about S.L. Viehl because I have one of her books. Another author I absolutely adore, who I always think of in the S.L. Viehl camp as in a strong, powerful female voice writing pretty close to hard sci-fi, like real meaty sci-fi, is Jane Johnson. Now, she has a Martyr series, so just be aware of that. that from the get-go that There's Not a Reason Why is the name of the series. It's one of my favorite series. I don't know how many books is in it. A lot of books in that series. I want to say 5 books at least. Is a tragedy. But it's boy, is it a great tragedy. Like, if you want a good cry, read There's Not a Reason Why by Jean Johnson. It's so good. But she also has a lot of other books that are all her stuff that I have read has all been science fiction, and I love Jean Johnson. So I kind of do a reread of those books once in a while just to be like, okay, I need a sob. Like, sometimes, look, we need to lie on a couch with a mound of tissues and just sob our way through a wonderful story of somebody sacrificing themselves for the good of the galaxy. I'm just saying, sometimes we do. And then I have some sci-fi romance authors in this list. Specifically, I would say Lyn Gala is one of my favorites. She wrote the Claimings series, which is brilliant. It is romance though, and it is sexy. And so, just know that. But it's a human alien romance, and I love her. So Lyn Gala is very high up there. And then a couple of other romance authors who I think are wonderful and worth shouting out are Kim Fielding. Kim Fielding especially has some good fantasy romances, which might appeal if you like my books. And then Amy Lane, and Amy Lane writes all different kinds of romances, mostly contemporary, but she writes some dark. She writes some really lighthearted ones. I really like her lighthearted stuff. She's a good, I would say, workhorse romance author in that she's very prolific, and she's very snappy and sharp. Her romances are like candy. They're real easy to eat. They're real easy to read, real fast, and really delicious. So if you want like a trial on a classic romance author, I would say try somebody like Amy Lane. And then I also have A.E. Viehl in here. A.E. Viehl specifically writes like shapeshifter and sort of, but more commonly like hard-boiled detective romances. I really love her stuff also. And then Cat Sebastian is another romance author I've read a ton of. Cat Sebastian, I think, would very much appeal. Cat Sebastian writes stuff set in the Victorian era in particular. And then I have an oddball pick. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this one, but I also love an author from the I guess 60s, maybe even the 50s, called J.D. Macdonald, who wrote pulps, who wrote mystery pulps back in the day. And I just think he is a wonderful writer. I am not a huge mystery reader. It's not a genre I adore. But I have to say that J.D. Macdonald's one of those writers who I read not for the plot, but for the style. His writing style is unmatched, I think. He's one of the greatest writers of his generation, and I will fight you forever. The way he describes things, the way he describes the way he details a fight sequence, the way he describes his characters is so good. He is such a good writer that I just admire him for that. And because he wrote mystery pulps, basically, he never got his dues. He has a couple of collections with some science fiction pieces in it that are mind-blowing. So I highly recommend you trying to track some of those down. Again, he is very dated. So, very misogynistic, like there's a lot of questionable content in his stuff. But I personally can overlook that for some of just the way he's put some of his sentences together. I don't know how else to put it. Like, just amazing writer. He has sentences that are so descriptive, they will knock you out of the book. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but basically you're reading something and then you're like, oh my God, this happens to me with Margaret Atwood. But you read a sentence and you're like, that sentence is so gorgeous and so evocative. I have forgotten what is happening because I'm just impressed by the sentence, which, maybe not necessarily a good thing if you want your readers to be entirely immersed. But as a writer reading another author, it's really magical when that kind of thing happens. And J.D. Macdonald is one of those authors who does it to me all the time. So I have to mention him. Right. How are we doing? I'm going to pause and see if there's any other comments or questions. People are talking about the delight of physical books. Oh, there we have a question. Just a reminder for everybody, especially if you're relatively new to one of my lives, if you can put a question mark at the beginning of your sentence in the comment, then I know it's a question. It's much easier for me to scan through. TM Kuda asks, who was my first queer rep character or relationship in print media that I remember? That is the thing, is I'm pretty sure there were some queer characters in some of my, like, kids' books sneaking in, you know, because the 80s. But it was Mercedes Lackey's, Magic's Promise series, which is a kill the gay series. We don't like this trope, but there it is. That was my first real encounter of a queer character in a genre that I loved, fantasy, as a main character, and it blew my mind. Lackey had always had queer rep in everything she wrote. And so, but I, who grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, was like, well, of course there are queer people in fantasy novels. Like, why wouldn't there be? But it was a real, like, mind-blowing experience to have one of those characters be the main character. And Lackey is the first author I remember reading that. It was remarkable to me. I mean, yeah, truly amazing. Like, for me, for rep outside, like, for, like, romance rep, it was actually manga where I started to see the first, like, queer characters in romantic relationships as the central, like, driver for those books. Very early, we used to get bootlegged, like, badly translated, Yuri and Yaoi from, like, you know, way back in the day, and the late 90s. And that was where I first read characters that were in romances that were queer. It was wild times back then. Holly says, forgive me if you've already answered this, but I was late to the party. No worries. What do you suggest we read to prepare for your new book? Oh, are we going to talk about me, my stuff? The new book's not out yet, you guys. Please, please don't think it's coming anytime soon. This is a long book. It is taking me a while to write. But yes, I'm having to read everything. Like, this is part of the reason it's taking me forever to write. Can I show you what I'm reading right now? I'm reading these two, which should tell you where we are temporally. So right now I'm reading Imprudence. I just finished Imprudence, or parts of Imprudence. I finished the parts of Imprudence that take place back in London. So that we're done with that one for now. Could probably put this back. And then you can tell I'm in Romancing the Werewolf. So temporally, we are now in 1895. And we started, at least with one character, in 1812. So we're covering a lot of I'm covering the entire breadth of the Parasolverse. I will probably, if you guys keep asking and if you remind me, I'll probably put a little post up that's like all of the books that I had written that I had to reread for the book that's about to come out, if you would like to reread them all. So you're ready. But that will happen closer to its publication date. But yes, yeah, you're probably gonna have to reread everything. I mean, I did. Why shouldn't you suffer? Yeah, it's just this book is, I finally decided, I was talking to my agent about it, and I was like, I think what I am calling it is an epic sweeping love story, and it spans multiple continents and decades of time. So that is why this book is long, and that is why I'm having to reread a lot of my own books, because because I want to give this to you, but also it's the way I write. These two characters keep touching into different books within the Parasolverse and, like, checking in on other characters at different places of time, as you do when you have written 30 books in the same universe. It is my own fault. But yes, everybody needs a check-in. Also, it's more fun for me if I'm, like, moving characters through space and time and I'm like, ooh, hey, I wonder if Lyle is in Egypt right then, or whatever. Like, is he? No? Okay. Is a different character? That kind of thing. Holly also wants to know if I've thought about the cover art for your new book. And that they love it when I go on and on about cover art. As we get closer to the cover art, I will go on and on about cover art. You know I do. I love these covers, so I'm sort of tempted, but this is in the How to Marry a Werewolf oeuvre, so it'll probably be a similar cover to that one. Of course, it's not one of the ones I have, but you can imagine it in your head. It's the pink one with the a porthole and the character in the middle of the porthole. So I think I will do something like that. Um, I'm very excited about images of people in puddles, like you're looking into the puddle and you're sort of so like maybe something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of rain in this current book. It's always the rainy season for some reason when they're in Southeast Asia. So there's a lot of monsoons. So, maybe we'll do something like that. I don't know. But I mean, I clearly am noodling. I've given it some thought, but I haven't made any final decision yet because it's not done. And that part is really fun for me, like coming up with cover art and stuff. So I'm not allowed to do it until I've finished reading the book. The first goal is finish writing the book. Other questions? Oh, Holly wants to know about typography in Thailand. Oh, Holly, were you in the BRW meeting this morning? Sounds like Holly has been around all day with me. Karst, Karst, otherwise known as egg box typography. At least that's what we used to call it in the geology department. But yeah, Karst, very cool typography. If you want to look up some cool typography, it's Karst typography. My favorite. That was a non sequitur. We just, in the immortal words of my friendship group, non sequitur woman just picked up a fish. So, or in her case, she picked up some Karst typography. Shall we get back to favorite authors? Let us see. So I have one additional sort of set of favorite authors that I was going to talk about. And these are kind of like the like, oh yeah, Gail surprise us category of authors. So you're not going to be surprised by any of these. People like Jane Austen and P.G. Wodehouse would sort of top this list. Dickens, for example. And in amongst this list is also Douglas Adams. I've read pretty much all Douglas Adams books. Actually, Adams is somebody that I have listened to. I used to listen to the original radio plays of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as a child while I was like coloring in my coloring books because you could check them out on tape from the library back then. So again, yay for the library. So Douglas Adams, definitely all of it. I can still recite the first part of Douglas Adams from memory because I loved it so much I had it memorized from the first part of the Hitchhiker's Guide. I still do it if we do sound checks when I'm like doing a podcast interview or something. Another author who will come as no surprise to anyone is Terry Pratchett. And then Patricia Briggs is right up there as well. I've read most of Patricia Briggs's stuff. I would say KJ Charles and R. Cooper, both of whom are romance authors, but are way more on the world building side of romance. And then, of course, Alexis Hall and TJ Klune. I've probably read most of what they have published as well, although I'm a little behind on Klune. So yeah, those are some more of mine. Those are some newer authors to add into the mix so that I'm not wading too far on the old 90s authors who I loved. Somebody said, I've written one sequel. I can't imagine writing 30 books in the same universe. I mean, 30 books is a loose way of putting it because I numbered the manga in there and then also quite a few short stories. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. But I've been at this a really long time. I mean, Soulless came out in 2009 and I started writing Soulless in, I think, 2006. So, it's now, it's been 20 years, basically. I've been working in and out of the same universe. So, yeah, but you can see why I would have to reread it, right? Because I can't keep it all in my head. Another question from TM Kuda. Hi, Ty. Any favorite comp authors or more current authors? Well, I tried for Klune, okay? I would call Klune a comp. Yeah, I mean, I would have to. I mean, Becky Chambers, I really enjoy Becky Chambers' books. Martha Wells. I mean, Martha Wells is an older author. I like Martha Wells's fantasy. I liked her Illyria stuff. Her desert set fantasy is amazing. So, I mean, I also like Murderbot. but but I also really liked Wells when Wells was writing 30 years ago. Some of the current authors that are popular are occasionally older authors who have researched, right? Kim asks, have I tried Dennis Taylor? The Bobaverse. Okay. Is this the chicken thing? There's also a chicken thing. I have a bunch of friends who keep trying to get me to read the chicken progression, or is it lit? There's a chicken lit RPG, which does appeal. If you're gonna read lit RPG, why not one that features chicken as a main character? I don't see why not. But no, I don't. I have not read Dennis Taylor. Roadkill, says somebody else. So not a chicken. But apparently, no. Please tell me more about this person and what the genre is. I always want to know that. I'm gonna scroll through Facebook comments and see if anybody's got ones for me to address. Oh, Sue wants to know how the mom is doing. Oh, for those of you who did not make it to the cheer up, I told a harrowing story of my mother and oxygen tanks, and I'm happy to report that the oxygen tanks are now all safely stored outside of the house and the car, and my mother has not exploded. So yay! Perhaps every time we do a Gail live, it'll be Gail being like, "Guess what? My mom still has not exploded. Hooray!" So yes, no new eccentricities to discuss with you, although I did see her recently. I did go out to ascertain the situation with the oxygen tanks for myself, and all is well. Um, Diana Rayburn books. Yes, Diana Rayburn is a comp author for me. In other words, when people talk about me, they often talk about her as well. I hear they're excellent. I'm trying to remember. I'm sure I have one to read, but I maybe haven't read it yet. I don't know. I am one of those weird authors who I don't really like to read anything that's too close to my own stuff when I'm writing that stuff. So if I'm writing Parasolvers, I'll be reading military sci-fi. Like I'll try to read something that's as completely different as possible. And I don't know why. I mean, I used to say I was afraid it would leak in, but I don't think that's really the case. I think it's just I want to be in charge of that universe while I'm writing it, and I don't want anyone else's ideas on how Victorian works or steampunk works or whatever to influence or fantasy while I'm writing that kind of thing. And then once I'm done and I'm editing, I'll go pick something else up. So it's possible that I've just never picked up a Diana Rayburn during the time when I would want to read that kind of book. I'm very much a mood reader. So if I'm not feeling it, I'm like, meh, and I'll just read something else. Patricia Briggs. Yes, we mentioned Patricia Briggs, obviously. Yes, I love Patricia Briggs. Another werewolf. Jim Butcher. I tried the first of the Dresden Files, and then I was like, meh. Rather like Patricia Briggs and Laurel K. Hamilton, I get suspicious of authors who keep going in the same series for too long. And by that I mean the same main character series. So I'm like, you're getting over 10 books with the same main character, and I'm like, no. I just sort of check out. A, it's too much of a buy-in, and B, I love an ending. I like things to end, which has driven some of you crazy because what happens is I end my series. The Alexia books are 5 books and we're done. The the Finishing Score series, 4 books and we're done, right? Castor Protocol, 4 books and we're done. And that's because I like writing the last book in a series and I like reading the last book in the series. It's one of the reasons I enjoy romances so much. They have very satisfying endings and they're going to have a very satisfying ending, and I want my ending to be satisfying. So if I look at a series that has 10, 15 books in it, I'm like, what's going to happen with that ending? How are we going to end it? Are you going to end it? Are you going to die without ending it? Because that has happened to me with authors in the past, and I consider it very rude of them to die without finishing their books. Sarcasm, all right, internet sarcasm. But I want it to end, and I want it to end well. So that is one of the reasons I have never really climbed into Jim Butcher, because I'm scared that it's not going to end. And then if it doesn't, it's not going to end well. Because it seems to me like the authors might be struggling with the endings if they keep writing in that same series. Just saying. Just makes me nervous, that's all. Scott has a completely arbitrary question, which is great because we're nearing closing in on the end of the live, as we've just talked about endings. How propinquitous. Scott would like to know what my favorite custard is to enjoy with tea. And this is an extremely challenging question. Like, I'm practically in tears about it because custard's my favorite. For those of you who don't know, the humble egg, I consider the egg the greatest thing ever. It is like the best protein. I'm a big fan, huge egg person right here. And which means custard is my favorite dessert, pretty much. Like most custards, anyway. I love a custard in whatever form. You can call it a pudding if you'd like, but a thing that is made creamy and with egg in it that makes me happy. Which means those kinds of desserts. So galactoboulico is one of my favorite desserts of all time. I'm sorry if anybody is Greek and I am pronouncing that wrong. Bougacha is another one. These are both Greek phyllo pastry and custard desserts that are amazing and extremely labor intensive, but they're so delicious. A pastistonada, huge fan of a pastistonada. That is a Portuguese custard tart. I love a custard tart. I love what Taiwan has done with the custard tart. They took it, they ran with it, they made it into all sorts of other things, and now it is a street food. I love this for me. I can chivvy up to a window in most countries now at a train station and get a custard tart, and I'm a very happy girl, let me just say. So yeah, I like custard in pastry if you push me. But I'll take it as a layer in a cake. I'll take it as the middle of a donut. You take that custard and you combine it with some sort of weedy, delicious thing that's terribly, terribly bad for me, and I'm probably super excited. There's a whole spate of people sticking custard inside croissants, at least in Barcelona when I was there. That was cool, like a pistachio custard stuck inside a croissant. Absolutely fantastic. Make it so. Delightful. Thank you for that question, Scott. That was a wonderful question. There was a brief discussion on Facebook about Terry Pratchett, favorite Terry Pratchett books. I'm one of the Witches people. I love the Witches series, but my true heart belongs to Death. Death is my favorite Pratchett character. I love Death. So Mort is one of my favorite Pratchett books. Yeah, Death, man. The mind of a man who could come up with that character. Absolutely genius. And just the simple trick of having Death speak in all caps. Genius. Absolutely brilliant. Like true brilliance. From an author perspective, I can't. Like words fail me. Just it's so clever and so simple. Oh, so good. Oh, Dick wanted to know if Anne Rice was a big influence on me. Actually not. I've never read Rice. I know. I've seen some of the movies, but no. So I had a friend, the aforementioned bestie that I met in English class in freshman year of high school, who's my beta reader for years. She was a big Anne Rice fan, but she told me about the fact that she'd gotten kind of, I don't know if you guys have had this experience. Some of you might have had this experience with me. But we called it book addiction, which is when you get so obsessed with one specific author and often one specific author's universe that you just keep rereading that author and that universe, and you never go into other authors, and you like have to break the addiction, like forcefully try to transition yourself out of it because you just keep reading and rereading. I think it happens to those of us who are rereaders more than any other kind of reader. But anyway, so she told me that had happened to her with Anne Rice, and I got scared and never read Anne Rice as a result of that. So yeah, and now I'm like, I'll just stick to that tradition. Perhaps someday, but some people are having technical difficulties on Facebook, and I'm sorry to say that I think that is more and more frequent these days. All right. Well, Facebook, I think we're done. YouTube, I'm going to check, see if there's any questions that I have not answered. It does not look like it. And we're rounding in on the end of the hour. So thank you all so much for joining me in this discussion of some of my favorite authors. I hope I've told you a couple of authors that maybe you don't know about that you would like to go check out now while you're waiting for me. I'm sorry, I'm taking a while, but I have a very good excuse. I have lots of good excuses, actually. And now I've given you all sorts of new authors to hopefully go read and discover and love. Not all of these are necessarily very much like me, but all of them I think you can probably see in my DNA as an author, um, probably recognize somewhere. And I really yeah, I really hope you enjoy them. I hope in some cases you go back and reread an old favorite. Here it's a lovely rainy evening, so I might very well do that. I mean I'm holding this one right now, so maybe it's time for a By the Sword reread. Um, I did not mention Feast and Wirt's Servant of the Empire series, my favorite of the epic fantasy series ever. But that is because I've only ever read those 3 books. So they didn't satisfy the 5 criteria. But man, is that a perfect rainy day read if you want to really get tucked in. And on that note, thank you all so much for tuning in and spending this hour with me talking about books. And we shall do it again next month. And I hope you have a lovely spring and happy reading. Have fun.